What up, YouTube? It's your boy Stevie Knight. I'm not about to get on one of these things today. Just gonna talk a little bit. Will George Floyd's death bring about real change? Will George Floyd's death bring about real change? I've been thinking about that the past couple of days. And I guess I should elaborate on that. When I say change, I mean like lasting change, like something that's actually gonna make a difference. And I mean, it could be in the affirmative or it could be in a positive or a negative, like in positive change or a negative change. But I'm, more speaking along the lines of something positive, right? Well, something positive, permanent or lasting, come from all of this that's happening right now. Yeah, a lot of people want to call this a race war, but I tend to disagree with that idea, man. I mean, there are like terrible, horrendous, horrible things happening day to day in America and pretty much all over the world due to this event. And it's due to like the terrible thing that happened to George Floyd. And it stems from like the deep rooted issues that derive from racism that have like been, planted here and been growing strongly for, the amount of years that we all know racism has existed. So I guess what my real question is, will George Floyd's death change racism in the United States and the rest of the world? And I bet that question is triggering to some people because a lot of people do not feel like George Floyd's death was a result of racism. So that question is probably just going to be like, get the hell out of here, Steve. What are you talking about? Like, it wasn't racism, it was based on all these other circumstances. And as I've stated in the previous videos that I've put out, I do not think those officers intended to kill George Floyd because he was black. That's an entirely different circumstance. And there are some people that believe that they intended to kill George Floyd. I don't believe that. But I do believe that George Floyd's death was a result of racism, because I believe that those officers treated George Floyd differently because he was black. I believe that those officers were excessive in their force and negligent or didn't, put importance on George Floyd's life compared to like another individual because of how he looked, because of the color of his skin. There's nothing I can do to prove that. It's just what I personally believe, right? And it's pretty much impossible to prove whether or not those individuals, those cops, were racist with their actions dealing with George Floyd that day. As long as you have to get them to admit it or, bring back like historical context with them, bring that about to shed light on that. But it's pretty much impossible to do that. But at the end of the day, the world is addressing this issue as a racist issue. So, like, it doesn't even matter at this point whether or not those cops were racist because the whole world is treating it as such. Well, the majority of the world is treating it as such. You have people that don't agree with that. You have people that extremely agree with that. But, it is what it is. At this point, it's being treated as a racist issue, an equality issue, and it all stemmed from George Floyd's murder. Whether you agree with that narrative or not, that's how the majority is looking at this situation. So what's going to happen from that? I guess a lot of people would take issue with, not a lot, but I'm trying to include all different perspectives of what I'm talking about, not just narrate it on mine and how I view it. But we have all sorts of different personalities and different perspectives in regards to this entire situation, and everybody sees it through their lens. And these are like opposing lenses and opposing ideologies and opposing perspectives that tend to clash. But with all that being said, I think the majority, I would venture to say the majority, the people looking in on this, we all want the same thing. We all want equality. We all want equality. And if you don't want equality, then you are the exact individual, the exact person that we need to be getting rid of. Not literally, but we need to change it. We need to do something about that. But I think for the most part, everybody wants equality. I mean, you're always going to have your extremists in every situation. You're going to have the extremists in the Black Lives Matter movement, and I don't agree with how they move either. But I mean, I don't agree with how any extremists move, because they take everything to the extreme, and those are like the outliers in these situations that, you know, they cause the most damage, they bring the most attention, and they represent the larger group. So like the larger group tends to get associated with the acts of a small percentage of that group, but you're always gonna have the extremists. And I'm not talking about that. I think the majority of people, we all want the same thing, and that's equality, right? So I mean, is that possible from this? Is that possible? And I mean, taking policy into consideration, like there's only so much, there's nothing the government can do to bring change to this. Like they can implement different policies to, like, you know, try to minimize situations that occur like this, or to identify situations that occur like this. But at the end of the day, the people that are out there risking, you know, their freedom to go put on displays of like hate crimes and, you know, damaging property and killing lives or whatever, like, there's nothing you can do to change those individuals' minds. And the extremists are the ones we don't need to be focusing attention on. But with that being said, I'm just saying there's only so much policy can do. Policy cannot change anyone's mind. That's on us. That's on the people to change individuals' minds. And with that being said, do I think that George Floyd's death can change racism, can influence racism? And I do think that's possible. I think it's happening as we speak. I think it's on its way. I mean, it's very prominent to me right now. It's very visible to me right now. I hope it, you know, continues to stay this way. The whole world is standing up. The whole world is speaking. The whole world is talking about this. The whole world is displaying some type of effort, action, and representation, and to represent their stance against something that's wrong. And whether you want to call it the equality, mistreatment, racism, police brutality, excessive force, people are standing up and they're speaking against it, whether it's in protest, you know, communication, social media, things of that nature. Like, people are doing that, and this is the most that's ever been done. I mean, social media is a big cause of that, because I mean, it allows people to say things in front of the world at one time, so messages get delivered instantaneously to large audiences. But that communication, that dialogue between different people, and learning from each other, and not being afraid to talk, and not being afraid to ask questions, and becoming aware, like, that's what's going to cause real change, especially for those individuals who are unsure, like the ignorant individuals. I'm not trying to use ignorant in like the derogatory. I'm saying ignorant that you just don't know any better. There's plenty of people who just don't know any better. There's plenty of people who didn't think racism even existed because they live in their box. Most people live in their box. You can only live your way. If you're not exposed, if you don't put yourself out there and be exposed to, you know, other lifestyles and how people move around this world, you're only gonna know what you know. And if you only know what you know, then how could you know anything outside of what you know? So it takes situations like this. I'm not gonna say like this, because George Floyd shouldn't have died, but it takes events of this magnitude to create that communication and create that awareness. And it's for those individuals who aren't aware, who don't know what's going on, or who have questions and they have probably been too uncomfortable to speak up or ask those questions, and, you know, in fear of like the response that they might get by not knowing. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel like there's ever been a more time that's been more comfortable. They're laying out the red carpet for people who fit in that category, who just don't know. This is like their time to soak in all this information and reconfigure their mindset about how this world really works. And break that cycle, break that racism cycle. It takes stuff like this. It takes you speaking to someone who you already had, you know, stereotypes or prejudices or, you know, preconceived notions about. And then when you speak to these individuals, you realize, oh, what the stuff I thought was entirely wrong. Or it could be entirely right. But I disagree with the latter. And I think most people don't know, and they make assumptions. And when you assume stuff, you look like an asshole. And that's what racism is, essentially. When you assume something and you don't know, more than likely you're gonna end up being an asshole. You're gonna look like an asshole. You don't make assumptions, you figure out what's going on. Don't judge a book by its cover. You figure out what's going on. You know what I'm saying? And as long as people are communicating and talking and being like active listeners and not just focusing on getting their agenda out and being all confined in their emotions and their perspective and their way of life, like equality is meant to engage everyone at once. And if you're not open to listening, really listening, then I mean, you're part of the problem, and like nothing's gonna come from this. I've never seen a time like this before where it's people from all different backgrounds talking about the same thing. Whether they disagree or they agree, but the fact that they're talking. Like, just from my personal experience, especially, I mean, it's because of social media, and I've been, fortunate enough to speak with people around the world about this issue. And people who agree with me, people who don't agree with me, people who have questions, people who can provide answers. Like, I've learned so much from people who don't share my perspective, who just don't know. Because I'm learning that there's a lot of people that just aren't aware. And then when you speak to people who aren't aware, and when you're able to share your experiences and your perspectives, like a lot of those walls, not on the walls, but a lot of that stuff that you learn get broken down. Communication is key. Communication is key. You know what I'm saying? It's just talking is dope, man. It's dope to see. I've never seen this amount of dialogue addressing such a controversial topic. And I said, for the most part, everybody tends to be, from what I've seen, everybody tends to be on the same wave. I mean, people address it differently, but I believe for the most part, everybody wants equality. Like, I think it can change. I think it will change in just people's mindsets. Just the other day, I was talking to my homeboy about it. Like, the other day, I was just going around buying groceries, and like, I'm not hypersensitive to it, because I mean, when I'm out, I got resting bitch face, because I don't want nobody talking to me anyway. You know what I'm saying? I just go about my day, whatever. But like, what, it was like 2-3 days ago, I felt like I was in the South. I'm in California right now. I felt like I was in the South. Southern hospitality. Everybody says, hello, how you doing? Can I help you? Blah, 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 blah. Like, it's just a way of life. It's not that way over here in California. Like, everybody's just on their way to where they're going. You know what I'm saying? And that day, it was specifically from white people. It was people that it felt like they were going out on the extra limb to like say hello, how are you doing? At like engaging in just casual conversation, like elderly people, younger people, like suburban, like people that I'm not accustomed to getting the type of response when I'm out and about. Like, it never happens. And I was like, wow, it surprised the hell out of me. I was like, wow, I'm thinking, I'm just putting it together. I'm attributing that to what's going on in this world. Like, I'm feeling it has to be coming from that. It has to be coming from that. And my boy agreed with me too. He said the same thing was happening to him. So, do I think this whole issue, this whole whatever you want to call it, can bring about real change? I do. But it has to be changed from us, nobody else. We have to be open to change. We have to be willing to change. Be willing to talk. Be willing to listen. I think everything gonna be all right. I'm looking forward to it, man. If it happens, we just have to keep pushing the agenda. I hate using that word. We have to keep pushing. We can't let this die. We can't let this blow over and then we back to where we started, 6 months from now. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to break all these walls down, break all these stereotypes down, break all this stuff attributed to whatever you want to call it, to put us all in a position where no one is afraid or scared being superior than anybody. Dead that shit. It's not black versus white. It's everybody versus racism. Don't let them push that agenda on you. Don't let nobody push that it's black versus white. That it's a race war. Don't let nobody push that on you. So, we can do it. We can do it. So, let's get it popping.